Welcome back, everybody, to the RacePlazaMedia podcast, episode 6. My name is Milan, and I'm here with my sister,
Pia.
And today we're going to talk about, I believe, 4 different championships that we watched this weekend.
Correct.
We're going to kick it off with MotoGP,
Uh-huh.
and then I'm going to catch us up on the 6 hours of the WEC race in Imola that happened. After that, you're going to catch me up
Yes.
on Supercross.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to finish it out with the GB3 championship.
Perfect.
So let's get started with MotoGP.
Yes.
MotoGP this weekend was in Spain.
Yes.
At the Jerez.
Angel Nieto track.
Exactly.
Circuit de Jerez Angel Nieto.
And Angel Nieto is the racer that Marquez recently leveled.
Correct. That was one of the
with.
things I was going to bring up at the end of this, because I had noticed the name, of course, and now that it's so fresh in mind, I was like, oh my gosh, this track is literally named after Angel Nieto. And of course, he was in conversation recently because, like you said, Marquez had passed his winnings, because Angel Nieto had 90 winnings overall, which is huge, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now, a couple races ago, Marquez had equaled him.
Yes.
And now he's at 91.
He has surpassed him,
He's just surpassed him. And ahead of Marquez are currently still, do you know who are the two in front of him?
Is it Valentino?
Valentino,
And then, I don't know.
Giacomo Agostini.
Okay, yeah. I was
so
never
those
gonna
are
guess
the
that.
two that are ahead of him. Which I didn't know that Angel Nieto, I think he had 13 world championships.
That's insane.
That's a lot.
That is double digits.
Yes,
That's a lot. That's a lot of one guy winning over like so many years.
Yes,
right?
I mean, Giacomo it has 15, which is also, but also keep
Is it
in
Valentino
mind,
has 8 and then Marquez 8? Is that right?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong numbers.
Okay.
Because I'm not that familiar with the history, but I had just looked up Anges because I was like, I was curious to find a little bit more or out more about him. So I thought that was really interesting. But his career spanned almost like 20 years.
That's a long time.
He rode from like the late 60s until the mid to late 80s.
7.
Okay, gotcha. I wasn't sure.
For Valentino.
For Valentino. And then for Mark is also 7 or 6. 6, I think, right now.
How many times has he won?
Fact
6 times,
checking.
yes.
Yeah, so 6
fact
is
checking
this.
us, sorry.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make
So
sure.
there's a potential for him to equal Valentino Rossi this year, which would be huge because also I think because they have such a big rivalry.
Or they did, yeah.
Yes. I mean, I think it's still there, maybe. Or at least it's talked about like it's still existing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there is still, like, there's not, like, the most fond of each other.
Yes,
I'd be surprised if they are.
But before we go into the race, I have just one more interesting fun fact that I found out as I was looking up the circuit. So, or actually it's, it doesn't matter. So F1 used to race on this track too.
Okay.
Early 90s, like Michael Schumacher, Heinz-Harald Frentzen is still the track record holder for Formula One.
I'm not surprised. I think it's a good track, but I think nowadays the cars are just too long.
But do you know the original reason why F1 doesn't race there anymore? So
is it petty?
It is.
Okay, that sounds like FIA.
Yes. So basically, I forgot what year it was. Like I think it's 97. Could be 94, but I think it's 97. There was a race there, and during the trophy ceremony, a dignitary from Daimler-Benz was supposed to hand over the trophy to the winners. I don't know if it was the first place winner, but he was supposed to hand over. But then the mayor of Jerez just took the trophy and handed it over.
And then ever since then, F1 is like, we're not coming back.
Correct.
Because of this disrespect.
Yes. At least that's what I've read. I could be wrong. Maybe also now, like you said, maybe the track doesn't lend itself to the car anymore.
Yeah, I think Barcelona probably lends itself better to it.
Yes, but then because of that incident, the F1 was
Fragile
like, we're never
egos
coming back.
Oh my goodness. It's also crazy because it wasn't even like an FIA dignitary that was insulted.
No, it was Daimler-Benz.
It was a team.
Yeah.
Manufacturer. Or maybe they sponsored it.
Yes.
And they were like, well, this is a slight against us.
Yes.
We are owed
Yeah.
this honor.
But it's so like petty.
It is.
So
it's
like
quite petty.
it kind of like a white glove gentleman kind of like, ugh.
And it's also
you
like,
know?
it's been like almost 30 years now, right? Like Yeah, that's crazy.
Yes.
3 decades of pettiness.
Yeah, but just to finish this off, I'm just going to finish off my news part that I had about this section was but we're getting another race in Spain for Formula One. This is Formula One related. I'm sorry, guys. Quick off tangent.
Okay.
Do you know where? Because they broke ground this week, literally, on this.
No.
It's going to be a new track in Madrid.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Is this a street track?
I mean, they're doing the groundwork for it. I think it probably is a street track.
Then you can't get me excited for it.
Yeah.
No.
But they, Carlos Sainz, Madrid.
I mean, I get it. I get it for the
hometown hero
Spanish drivers. It's awesome. But I don't want another street track on part of the grid. You know, give me tracks, you know, then try to modify some of the other tracks.
No, I agree. But I had seen it this week. So I was like, oh, how it kind of all works together. I'm pretty sure it's a street track just based on the
like
map
Madrid,
layout that I've seen. Yeah.
Unless it's outside of it, yeah.
But I would say I'll do more research on it, but I'm pretty sure it's still considered a street track.
Yeah, because like the Barcelona track is not, of course, in Barcelona. It's, you know, I'm assuming it's maybe Barcelona County, you know, or whatever. Anyways, let's get into MotoGP.
Yes.
So you actually watched the sprint race.
Correct. Yes.
Can you tell me something about it?
Yes, I can tell you something about it. Yeah, I watched it delayed. I didn't have a chance on Saturday, so I got up. Or first thing I did Sunday morning, I woke up, I put on the MotoGP sprint race. I've been trying to avoid any spoilers.
Did you know any spoilers going on?
No spoilers. Oh, okay. I also didn't know the qualifying results because I didn't want to risk looking that up and then finding out anything. So it's like, let me just not Google MotoGP at all, or not swipe left, you know, at the phone. So basically, first big surprise, Quartararo being in pole position.
Yes.
Which was such a beautiful surprise, especially with the Ducati reigning these last couple of races. It was so surprising to not only see a different manufacturer in like the top 6 group, you know, but then all the way at the top, which is really special. And of course, also for Fabio Quartararo, just because he's had a couple of tough seasons. He is, of course, previous world champion also. The last time he had won or been on a podium of a race, I think was in like 2023, like Indonesia.
It was 560 days ago or something, but it was last time podium.
Yeah. Okay, so last time he was on a podium was then in Indonesia 2023. Last time he had led a race was in Sachsenring, Germany, also 2023, I think. So it's been a little bit since he's had some of the bigger successes, but he's been fighting and working his way through the ranks. So it's really beautiful to wake up to see Fabio there in the front. And then, of course, we had Mark and Pecco right next to him on the front row. And then in the second row, we had Alex Marquez, Frankie Morbidelli, and Maverick Vinales was up back there again, which was really nice, especially after the last race. He was unfortunately taken away his podium because of the whole tire pressure issue, right? So
it was very unfortunate.
Yeah, going into the race, I was curious to see how Fabio Quartararo will fare on the Yamaha. The commentators were saying things like there's not a lot of straights, so it's good. It works in his favor because the Ducatis just have the pace on those straights, so it works for him. So there's a potential that he
or not
will
a lot
hold
of
off
long straights on the track.
Of course there's straights, but not
like
long ones.
I've raced on there with like an F4 car in iRacing and stuff like that, and it's very windy.
Yes,
you know,
which is fun. Yeah. And I remember last year we had this beautiful battle between Pecco and Marc Marquez, where Marc Marquez had, I think, passed him on the last lap in that double turn, and
Jorge ended up winning the race, right?
I think so, something like that. It was beautiful. It was really, really fun. But this race is not notoriously Marc Marquez's strength.
Yeah.
No, Pecco won that race because Pecco has won, I think, this track multiple times in the row. So maybe Mark had a battle with somebody else, or maybe Pecco ended up taking a position back. I don't remember exactly, but it's not Mark's strength. This track has also had some really tragic history, of course, in this track. So it was going to be interesting going into this race. Starting off, Mark and Alex Marquez had an excellent start. Quartararo had a little bit of trouble at the start, but he went super aggressive into that first turn, so he was able to take back the pole position.
Do you know how many laps they do in sprint? So 25 in a full race, and is it half?
It was 19 minutes.
19 minutes.
That's what I remember. I think it was 12 laps.
Okay,
maybe.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
But yeah, so Quartararo was able to get back his pole, which was beautiful, and then unfortunately, so soon into that sprint race, lap 2 really is when Quartararo crashed out, and Alex and Mark and Alex and Bagnaia, everybody ended up passing him, of course.
Was he able to get back on the bike?
I'm trying to look at my notes. No, I don't think so.
Okay, he was out.
During the sprint race, we had a bunch of crashes. Like Miller ended up crashing out, Zarco ended up crashing out, and I think most of them didn't continue on the track, which is a bummer, of course. And that was pretty much the most exciting thing for the sprint race. There was not much that really happened afterwards. I mean, there was some battling happening, but it's such a short race. I mean, it is a sprint race. So it was not a lot of battling in the front. I mean, Mark was able to ride out a pretty solid lead. He ended up losing some of the time towards the end, but he was not in danger, really. And then also Alex and Pecco really didn't have a fight. There was a moment where we thought maybe Frankie Morbidelli might be causing some danger to Pecco, but that I don't think really happened. The really fun thing, or the really nice thing that also happened, was that Aldeguer, the rookie teammate of Alex Marquez, came in 5th.
Aldeguer is honestly, he's been doing really well. I'm very excited for him. I mean, to be fair, it seems to also that even though it's obviously not the newest Ducati, the team is really doing really well with it, you know, and it seems like the riders are also getting along with the bike really, really well. So that's really awesome that they were able to keep developing the bike in a way that makes them competitive.
Yes. The cool thing also was, so the podium celebrations were not where the main podium celebrations were held. I mean, they don't always are for the sprint race anyways, but these ones were on the track between sector, I think, 3 and 4, in front of the big curved grandstands where there's that's a double turn. Which was really nice. So it was right in front of the audience. They set it up like really impromptu as soon as the race was over. And then just, of course, the chance for...
Yes, I saw that.
Especially Marc Marquez, but both of the Marquez brothers was huge. And I mean, the atmosphere must be so insane. Not only, I mean... all the riders, of course, the Spanish riders specifically, of course, comment on it because it's their home race and things. But even Pecco said something like the atmosphere here is just on another level. The commentators were saying that, like, if you have the option to attend a Spanish Grand Prix, just because I'm sure it's similar to the Italian Grand Prix too, just because there's a big history in MotoGP for Italians and Spanish riders. So I'm
for
sure
both countries.
The atmosphere at those two Grand Prix, I mean, they have several Grand Prix in those countries, but it must be special. You know?
And it's also, if you think about it, right, you've had in recent history also a lot of Spanish champions, right? You had like the reign of Marc, and then I know that of course Jorge Martin won recently, and I know the commentator said that there was like a decrease in Italian viewers, and then when Pecco started winning the championships back to back, that's when they started coming back around. It makes sense. But it just seemed, I had already seen a clip of Marc on the podium for the sprint race. And you can just see he's like directing the audience. And they're like, and that's what we keep telling our friends and everyone that's listening to this, is like the celebration of MotoGP is just on another level. They're just like really having fun, and the fans are so invested. Like, I mean, Marc has like a whole fan blocks just right there for him where it says Big 93.
I mean, a lot of I mean, I don't think every rider has it, but a lot of the bigger ones, like Pecco has one too. Jorge last season, of course, had them too. But it's just, the atmosphere so, it seems so electric. And we're already feeling it through social media, through the TV.
Yeah, absolutely.
So being there, I'm sure it's just a whole other experience. So it was really cool that they had those podium celebrations right there in that turn. And it was also really sweet. Mark had grabbed Alex's hand to walk with him to the front of like where their podium celebration was. And then they started jumping, and then the whole audience
they just
started
go so
jumping.
hard.
It's like,
they really do.
It's good.
It's so awesome. They really like seem to be like taking it in and enjoying it, which is
they
awesome.
Should.
Yeah, they should.
Like, who knows how many wins you can get? I mean, we'll talk about that, I think, a little bit later again. But it's just celebrate it, enjoy it, soak it all in.
Take it in, you know.
It's
So then, so that was the sprint race. Then going into the main race that I also watched.
Yes.
We had Fabio Quartararo again on P1.
Yes.
And we had Marc Marquez in P2, Bagnaia in third, and then Alex Marquez in fourth, and then Morbidelli in fifth, and then so on. So I think off the start, I can't tell actually whether or not Mark and Pecco didn't have a so good start, or if Alex Marquez just had an excellent start, because he immediately took the fight to the front row, right? Because he started on the second row, and he immediately was like attacking Bagnaia. Then we had that, and then Mark and Pecco ended up clashing into each other really, really hard. I think it was kind of lucky that both of them were upright when it happened before
100%.
They were at an angle, which I think prevented from both of them wiping out.
I agree.
And then so there was immediately like attacking between each other, but then Mark was kind of able to get out of the quote unquote sauce. And then he was like on the hunt for Fabio. And then we had Alex and Pecco battling each other, but Alex was still faster and he was able to overtake, and then it was Bagnaia in fourth, right?
Yeah, there was a moment where Alex had gone wide, so he lost the position, but then he ended up, of course, gaining it back. But then also so early into the race, lap 3 is when Marc Marquez unfortunately crashed. He, as some of the commentators were saying, he maybe was a little bit too confident going into that corner, because it was actually a corner that was his strength, or a turn, because it was a left turn that he loves them and he's really good at them, but something happened. But the good thing is he was able to rejoin, but unfortunately all the way in the back, because it was lap 3, the pack was still really, really close together. So
I mean, if we're going to talk about this real quick, I will say, I mean, it seems like Mark, I think like the biggest opponent, and I'm not saying this to be dramatic or anything like that, but the biggest opponent that Mark has on the track is himself. Because he was the fastest on the track, and then he got back on the track, as we said, and he rejoined the race, and he was down, I think, like 19 seconds to another rider, and he made all of that up. And he was so fast on a bike that was damaged. It just shows that, I'm not saying he would have won the race, right? But I think it would have been, the likelihood would have been maybe been there. But this also shows that consistency is key, right? This is exactly what we had last year with Jorge Martin and Pecco Bagnaia. Pecco won more of the Grand Prix. And Jorge showed up on Saturdays. However, Jorge stayed on the bike on Sundays, and we had Pecco DNFing a bunch of times that ended up costing him valuable points in the end. And I'm not saying this will happen this year, but it's definitely a possibility. Before we move on from that, I will also say, however, that like last minute charge that doesn't make sense, like the charge or the hunt down that Marc Marquez did at the end was mind-boggling. He went from, what is it, 20?
He went from 22nd to 12th.
To 12th. He overtook 10 people, you know, and of course, like some of them are on a slower bike and some of them are just not as fast, but that's still a lot of people to overtake.
It's a lot of overtaking, because overtaking is not easy. They're all excellent riders, obviously, and they're in that position. They're fighting against Mark because they're wanting the points, of course, too. So they're not going to make it easy on him. So it was definitely, I mean, it's definitely super impressive that he went from 22nd, he came all the way up to being in 12th position. So he was able to gain 4 points. So he lost a lot of points because he didn't make it onto the podium at all.
Absolutely.
But gaining at least 4 points definitely does help. All the points are...
especially for a championship that is so tight right now.
Yes.
Then we had Fabio Quartararo actually leading the race for quite a while. And then eventually Alex was sitting in second, and then Pecco was sitting in third. And then there was like, Pecco was like pushing onto Alex every once in a while. But he also said in his post-race interview that every time he got close, he just wasn't able to like make a move out of it or extract enough time or extract enough momentum. I think the dirty air was really not for him in this track. And the commentator said that too, and it's like he has been struggling with overtaking. This is not the first time this has happened this season. I can't really recall how it was last season, but there has been a lot of issues with him, at least. Like, once he's in the front, he's good.
Yeah,
right? He knows how to.
Once he's stuck behind somebody.
Exactly. Once he is behind someone, he's been struggling. And so he was never really able to make a move on Alex. However, Alex then ended up making a move on Fabio.
Yes, lap 11th is when that
lap
happened.
11th. And it was clean on hard racing.
Yes.
But Fabio went a little bit wide, just like he just left a margin open, right? And then, of course, with someone like Alex behind him, who is a Moto3 as well as a Moto2 world champion, he went for it, and then he was immediately able to put in a little bit of a gap, and then he just rode out his race in clean air. And for the very,
and he was fast. Also,
he was fast. Yeah,
he broke the track record, I believe, with the fastest lap. And then, like what you were, I'll let you finish what you started.
And then for the very first time in his MotoGP career since joining the grid, and since the last time he was on winning a race was in 2019, Alex Marquez won the race. Woo! And it was really, really beautiful.
So emotional.
It's highly emotional. You can see that he was definitely like already like in tears when he was on the bike, right? But before that, he went to technically his brother's fan blog, because it said 93, but they were all, of course, ecstatic for him. And then he threw his boots in there. You know, someone got some collector items over there,
or his knee protectors. I think that's what he usually throws.
Yeah, and then I think
a glove, I think.
Yeah, something like that. And it's like it's so interesting. Like, they get rid of all their stuff, but it's like he took a long time to get back to the podium.
But I also love that they give him the time and enjoy it. There's no rushing, because I feel like in other sports, F1, they might be rushed to finish their celebration. Like, of course, like there's a time schedule and yada yada yada, but like, it's his first win. Let him soak it in. Yeah. You know, like, let him go to all the grandstands and celebrate with the people. Let him take the flag. Let him get off the bike, and let them have to restart the bike to get going.
And one of my favorite things is also, like, you can tell all the marshals there are such huge fans. Yes. They're so excited, and they're usually the ones taking also pictures and handing them the flags and stuff like that. It's just such an excitement to watch. And I said it last time MotoGP, we did a MotoGP recap. I was like, it was just a matter of time until Alex will win. But because it was so early, it happened so soon, I will say I wouldn't be surprised if it happens a few more times this year.
I would be really excited. I also want it to happen in a race where Mark is in the top two. You know?
Yes. I think it would have been obviously much more difficult with Mark if Mark would have been there. But we don't know if he would have. And I think also the track definitely lent itself to bikes that are not as fast as the Ducati. Because the Ducati is, I think, the fastest one on the straights. And of course, if you don't have long straights on a track, then it will benefit all the teams that are not quite as quick. Yeah. But it was still really awesome. And it's also really cool to see all the excitement and how everyone else was excited for them. And I also love always the Ducati team celebrating with the Gresini team.
Oh, yes.
Because obviously Mark used to be at the Gresini team, and it seems like they're next to each other. Yes. I don't know if it just looks like it or if they really
might be.
But they are always celebrating together, and it's just awesome. I'm so happy for Alex.
Yeah, and I mean also, like, his parents were there.
Yes.
It looked like his girlfriend was there.
Yes.
And everybody was crying and celebrating, and he, like you said, he was clearly crying on a bike. You could see him, like, put his helmet down, his visor was down, his hand was just in front of his head. I mean, that indicates to me he's crying.
He was just thinking about something, actually.
And then also on the podium, of course, there was also a moment where he started to direct the audience, you know, like, hey, you know, like stuff like that, which is just do it. Like it reminded me of, coincidentally, you had showed me the day before the one video
of
Lando winning his very first time last year in Miami, and then that everybody or most other drivers went up to him and congratulated him because they knew what a big moment it was. Of course, for Lando, it had other implications also because he had been on the podium so often and he had not made it to the top.
And he started from P1 many times.
Exactly. So, like, of course, but it's just, and we had talked about it briefly yesterday, it is such a huge achievement.
Yeah.
Same in MotoGP. You're in the top of your sport. There's only 22 seats on the grid. You're on it. You're racing in the races of your life, you know?
Yeah.
Like, this was probably your dream as a child, and you've made it.
Yeah.
And then not only have you made it onto the grid, but even fewer people make it onto the podium, but then also onto the top step.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is such a huge achievement. So that's why I live for the MotoGP drivers or riders to celebrate their hearts out, you know?
Absolutely.
Because it deserves that. And I wish, and we've said it so many times already, but I wish Formula One would have that
you know what,
celebration.
Yes, maybe we would have to give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that's just not on the broadcast. Maybe we don't see that.
Yes.
It just doesn't seem like it. I will say, obviously, there's the big advantage that they can get off the bike and back on the bike.
Of course.
Whereas, like, once you're out the car, forget about it. But I wanted to also bring up a few things that might have slipped under the rug or underneath the excitement for Alex winning. I will also say Enea Bastianini started in 18th place and finished in 9th. I'm so excited for him. Ai Ogura finished in 8th. Pedro in 7th, which I've been actually kind of expecting more from Pedro, but he just hasn't been able to get along with the bike. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just going to take him a little bit longer because he's obviously on a new bike. I think the really tragic thing that I wanted
before you get into the tragic thing, I just wanted to lift one last person up. Is Maverick Vinales coming in 4th again. You know, after we already talked about the last race where he had unfortunately got points or time added because of the tire pressure.
Yeah,
so
I
now
think it's like 16 seconds you get added.
It's so brutal.
Yeah.
But then at least he was able. It's something he seems to be meshing now with the KTM. I'm hoping this will be an ongoing thing. Exactly. But him coming in 4th is just amazing. So close to the podium. He got a little bit close. Or closer to Pecco towards the end again, like on the last third of it. Then he lost it again, but there was a moment I was definitely like, oh, maybe he will bring the fight to Pecco and see if he can make it onto the podium. But it didn't quite get there. But I was rooting for him.
I was not. Hey, listen, I still am supportive of Pecco. However, I think... Oh, I was going to mention also Aleix Espargaro, who was last year a permanent member on the grid. This race was the wild card for the Honda HRC test team. And he unfortunately also, I think, ended up getting a penalty at the end for the same thing, Maverick Vinales, for the tire pressure.
Yes.
Very frustrating. But the person that I really wanted to bring up is... Joe Mir, again DNFing.
Yes.
I think they mentioned it that out of the last 11 races, he did not finish 9 of them.
Yes.
That's he was a champion. He was a champion in, what is it, in 2022? Then 2021, and then 2022 and 2023 was Pecco. And then it was Jorge. So it's like, he knows how to ride the front, right? And he knows how it is to win races, clearly. It's just, I don't know what's going on with him. I'm hoping that he's able to kind of figure it out.
It's such a bummer. It breaks my heart every time I see his name, his picture pop up with Joe Mir crash. And I was like,
And then the other Yamaha rider,
I
had to think about it for a second. Jack Miller, his bike just stopped working, so it wasn't really on him.
No.
He was actually doing quite well. He was definitely in the top 10, closer to the top 5, I believe.
Yeah, he also looked very frustrated once he had to slow down and had to let everybody else pass. It was, just a little bit of a bummer because he's been having a decent season for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think also a bummer was that Aldeguer, he had crashed. I forgot what
18th lap.
Was it 18th?
Yeah, I have it pulled up.
Oh, okay. Well, no, he crashed in lap 6. then he rejoins, and then he ended up leaving the race with at lap 18.
Oh, I thought he crashed out.
No, because he had rejoined it and tried it, but then I guess they decided to retire him, which was a bummer.
Yeah, Morbidelli also didn't finish, and then Chandra, the rookie, also unfortunately did not finish.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a bummer.
But overall, I would say it was a great race. It was really exciting to see Alex win.
Yes.
And I'm excited. They are returning in France.
In 2 weeks.
I'm excited. I think MotoGP is, if we're looking at the standings, real quick, we have Alex Marquez leading the championship,
which is incredible,
by 1
single point
over Marc Marquez. So that was also, sometimes you think about like, when someone crashes and you're like, why are you even going back on the bike?
Yes.
Like, just, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it did matter. It did matter tremendously. And even though he had lost so much time, he made up so much time.
Yes.
And he ended up really doing a lot of damage control.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're so close together. And then Pecco is 20 points behind Alex right now. I mean, it's so close. I mean, it's so close considering how much racing they have ahead of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's been a really fun season. I was thinking, and I hate to admit it, during the race before Mark had crashed out, I was like, I wouldn't mind if somebody else wins or if there's like a fight for the front, because I didn't want him to.
You say that wearing a 93 shirt?
I am. Wow. And I'm just saying, like, because I want it to be a fun season. I do want him to, I would love for him to win.
Yeah.
But I want it to be an entertaining season.
Yeah, I get that.
I'm just nervous that it will turn into just like a runaway, and I don't want that. So this race has been really interesting. So that was nice.
Yeah. So now we're going to move on to the 6 hour